sometimes the younger brother needs taken to the woodshed.
Jim Ross is like incredulous. What the hell's that?
A figure four leg lock over top of the blood-stained AEW logo.
The most important match in the history of 21st century professional wrestling. Hello and welcome to the Best Match Ever series, where we delve into the anatomy of a classic wrestling match. Michael Hamflett, what is in store for us today?
Well, Sidge, it's a big one. It's a sentimental favourite of yours, and now could it be one of mine? We're doing Cody versus Dustin Rhodes from Double or Nothing 2019, May 25th, 2019, AEW's first pay-per-view.
First ever show.
Indeed. And as always, we'll do a little bit on the build, which of course took place mostly on YouTube, as that was AEW's primary content delivery method until Double or Nothing, and then until Dynamite launched later on in the year. It's one of the matches of the show, not just because Cody's in the Elite, but because there was all of this kind of lore that existed even before AEW, not just between the Rhodes brothers of wanting a match or a platform for their match, and all they ever got was B-shows and TV and Fastlane when they believed this was WrestleMania worthy. So there was something for the brothers to prove together. And of course, there was something for both of them to prove individually as well. Cody Rhodes has bet on himself as part of the iconography of all this show, and indeed helped launch AEW and believes himself to be the top star that WWE didn't. Dustin Rhodes has kind of taken the gamble to leave WWE and follow his brother into this kind of bold new world. And more than just brother versus brother, it's rooted narratively in Cody's long-standing desperation to kill the Attitude Era, kill the idea of the Attitude Era, and how it's kind of become the vortex of so much mainstream wrestling, WWE, basically, that has been stuck in this sort of time warp for, at this point, decades. He'd cut promos when he was still Stardust in WWE that you can find online, where he's speaking
digital exclusives.
Indeed,
yeah.
That he was speaking to his future wife, Eden Styles, about how he was desperate to kill the Attitude Era, where he would name check the likes of Goldust, the people that he needed to take down and indeed take out. And in case the illusions obviously weren't clear enough, he does this promo in the build-up where he kind of sits and he talks ultimately about having to kill his brother to kill the idea of the Attitude Era. There's some even less subtle symbolism that we'll get to in the entrances, but before we get to the match and the presentation of it and what so much discourse would flow from this, what are your memories of this quite remarkable time?
I think that I was very much prepared to fall in love with AEW before I actually fell in love with it. The idea was so intoxicating. It's something that we'd been deprived of course, for 19 years, 18? You can even argue 20, 21, considering how absolutely finished and awful WCW felt, the beginning of 1999?
Yeah.
You know?
As a mainstream alternative, there was nothing from that point. Pretty
absolutely
much,
nothing at all. So I fell in love with it. Kenny Omega had become my favorite professional wrestler. The Young Bucks had become my favorite tag team. I admired the gumption, the rhetoric, the ideals of Cody Rhodes. And as much as I really thought, you know what, he's got something with this classical pacing that he deployed in the match with Nick Aldis at All In, I still wasn't sure of how great could Cody be. He charmed me massively as a heel, as this gregarious face. It felt like they need him for all of this to work. Obviously, he was the guy who was adamant that All In could happen and should happen and needs to happen at the scale that it did happen. It was just a really, really exciting time. This match, which we're about to review, is the most important match in the history of 21st century professional wrestling.
We kind of have to start with these big matches, often with the big entrances. And this would become a talking point. It kind of still is to this day, considering how wrestling has changed since 2019. Cody Rhodes' music hits. He walks down to the ring where he is. It's interesting. He's received as a massive babyface to this audience, in spite of what we're about to watch. And it's part of Cody's art, I guess. But then he arrives, he gets to the ring, and then Brandy hands him a sledgehammer, and he goes to the top of the ramp, and he, in now a moment that everybody remembers if you watched it, if you didn't at the time, takes a massive sledgehammer to a ginormous Triple H throne as Brandy shouts, "Break it down." There was no attempt to be subtle at what was happening here. To your point, I think if they were mindful, those within AEW were mindful of how so much of this was a direct response to years and years of complaints, there were so many things they were able to do to confirm your thoughts that this was a response to complaints. And this was absolutely one of them. It made no secret of what all of this was. And indeed, Cody Rhodes in this moment, and I will admit, kind of felt alienated by this at the time, felt like Cody Rhodes was trying to position himself as the Triple H of this company, which was difficult for me. It didn't jive with me as a babyface move, but I suppose if there was ever a night to do it, it had to be this one. So in hindsight, I get it. I think it was the right call, but it absolutely did position him as the Triple H of this. And he was kind of able to play both sides because he did
throughout the match.
Has always said that like Triple H was his guy to watch. And then it did kind of feed into the match we saw as well. So I'm way kinder to it, like out of context than in it, truthfully. And my opinion didn't matter because the people in the building went insane for this.
My take is that the pacing and big match drama and the relative lack of content in this match, which is basically the WWE approach kind of, in that don't do too much, slow it down, tell a story in there, don't need a million pile drivers and all those awful cliches that I regret to echo. Cody Rhodes working the sort of match that Triple H would really enjoy and wish there was more of was a bigger flex than smashing the throne. Just a nice little burial, tacitly, much more subtly, of WWE and what they thought they couldn't do anymore. It's like, no, you can't do professional wrestling the way it's meant to be done. It's timeless, it's brilliant, and we're going to do it. I will say that, one, I had a giddy thrill watching it. It was just like, it was a definitional AEW moment of that challenger brand mentality of, it's been crap, you know it's crap, we're here to tell you it's crap, and it was a good, maybe even necessary. It went viral, of course. It informed so much of the conversation. They needed to put themselves on the map. They did with this one throne. But ultimately, if the match that followed wasn't very good, it would have looked like a really bad self-own. And I think they substantiated that big tone setting. We're going to do what they do, only infinitely better. And then the match really did, for me, justify a cheap, cynical ploy. I'm not saying that Cody Rhodes didn't feel it at the time. He probably did. But at the same time, it was a cynical marketing tactic.
And a gutsy one. Because if the match does bomb...
If the match bombs...
You're right, a gutsy move to do that, definitely. Yeah. You mentioned about how there was a certain sense of nostalgia, or the type of wrestling Triple H would like, or just this idea that there could be this version of wrestling again that simply was not on the main stage. You could almost feel that when Dustin came out and he was announced for the first time in forever as the natural Dustin Rhodes. Again, it was that sense of leaning on nostalgia, but like wrestling that you wanted, or like people love Goldust, and even Dustin Rhodes has embraced Goldust, but there was something to, it's not just Cody versus Gold, it's not Stardust versus Goldust, it's the natural Dustin Rhodes. And he comes out in a look that we're now all familiar with, obviously, but it's the first time we see the full red and black gear with the half and half face paint. He kind of teased it online. And something that stuck out to me here that it didn't at the time is that it is sort of the colours of the Attitude Era logo, and you can see the blood running through Dustin as a bit of foreshadowing of when it's going to run out of him. There's something that we might get used to a lot on this podcast. There's a bell pop. It's 2019, so it's a "This is awesome" chant, but there's an enormous pop as the bell rings and the two circle, and there's "This is awesome" chant immediately. It's going on in the middle of the show, but it is every bit a main event on this card. There's Dusty Rhodes chants, and Dustin points to the sky. Cody has to fight back a few tears, and it's a huge moment. The commentators like leaning on that as well. They say like Dusty Rhodes would be looking down, like he might not want to see his sons fight, but he would be proud of what they're doing here tonight. So there's a nice way to kind of measure the kayfabe and the reality of the gravity of this situation. It's a hard lock-up that gets them going, and Cody immediately hits that kind of like drop-down Goldust punch and a tope suicida, pretty much within seconds of the bell, as if to illustrate, I'm the younger brother, mate. I'm twice as fit as you. I'm twice as strong, all of that sort of thing. Cody's flexing, literally so. He's super confident. He teases throwing him into the barricade a couple of times, but he, in fact, uses it to mock Dustin Rhodes, mock the older brother. So when Dustin powers out of this, when he stands on the apron and hits a flipping senton onto the floor, that's his response of, you don't need to be young to do cool stuff, mate. And it immediately lets the crowd know where the babyface heel dynamic is here. You might have cheered Cody Rhodes for launching AEW. You might have cheered him for smashing Triple H's throne. But within the context of this match, the younger brother's kind of being a bit of an asshole, and the bigger brother needs to give him a beating to put him back in his place. And the fans immediately kind of latch onto that story within those first few seconds. Jim Ross also like establishes that like Dustin Rhodes has not just come here to die in front of his younger brother, and here's this flipping scent on it as evidence of it. After that, Dustin goes to the flip-flop and fly, obviously in tribute to Dusty, but then Cody powders, briefly walks into the crowd to take a little breather, and then when he takes the ref, when he gets back in the ring, Brandy is straight up on there, snapping the neck over Dustin Rhodes. The tone and the dynamic has been perfectly established within this first exchange. Cody, at this point, obviously has got the advantage because Brandy has given it to him, but Dustin, because he's stronger, because he's physically still a little bit bigger than his younger brother, is able to fight back. He manages to get on an abdominal stretch. There's a dragon screw, so he gets to work the knee. There's a snap power slam that he still delivers beautifully, like he was 25, but it only gets the 2. He gets the Goldust punch of his own, so he's like, I can do that too, mate. It was my move first. And when the two of them are hitting the ropes, you can just see the pace that Dustin Rhodes is working at here. He's already been in great shape in that last Goldust run, but he's actually getting to use
That's
it.
JBL. He'd never look better.
He's never looked better. But he's actually getting to use that fitness here because he is proving that he can keep pace. And he's kind of making a bit of a fool out of Cody at this point. He goes to set up the Shattered Dreams, and while the referee says, no, you can't, that's a low blow, it's a low blow, Cody Rhodes rips off the middle turnbuckle pad, like underneath his crotch where he'd be getting kicked. Dustin goes to run at Cody, but rather than just letting him kick the steel, Cody moves and pulls Dustin into that middle turnbuckle spot. He's hit the steel, he rolls out to the floor. While he's out on the floor, and Cody is like kind of providing a distraction, Brandy absolutely drills him with this really cool looking spear. That gives Earl Hebner the excuse to throw Brandy out of there, and all of this has been a distraction piece because when Dustin emerges from the chaos, he is covered in blood.
He looks like he's bladed himself about 10 times just to make sure the dramatic effect has been registered. We'll go into it more after, like, one of the best blade jobs of all time. And this is harrowing.
It is, and this eventually gets acknowledged. I think it was by Excalibur on commentary. Dustin has done the red half of his face paint, and the other side is just Dustin Rhodes. It's not anymore. It's all red face paint because his face is as red on the non-face painted side as the paint on the other. It's incredible to see him just covered in the claret at this point. Cody hits in a few punches, rolls Dustin back in, and then takes the long, lingering look at the taped fist, which was white and is now red. There is literal blood on his hand, and it's his brother's. He doesn't back down. He keeps hitting punches. He targets the cut. He's hitting stomps. Dustin is basically flitting between wobbly legs and outright dead selling. When he's stood up, he can barely stand. When he's on the ground, he's out for the count. And it just feels like there's already no way back from him. He takes a couple of really hard turnbuckles, and as a result of flapping and flailing, there is now blood over the ring. It's over the ropes. You can see blood, liquid blood on the ropes. There's on the canvas. It's on the white of Earl Hebner's referee stripes.
It's an abattoir.
Yeah.
The canvas of the ring looks like an abattoir.
Cody looks like he's done a Ric Flair blade job because his blonde hair is already going dyed red with
pink, isn't it?
Dustin's blood. At this point it's abattoir is a perfect word. It's just looking like a war zone. And to illustrate that point, rather artfully, I think, Cody Rhodes applies a figure 4 leg lock over top of the blood-stained AEW logo with nowhere seemingly for Dustin to go. That forces him to fight out, and we get the reversal. And the only way the move is broken is because Dustin has got the power to reverse it. Cody can make the ropes, but Dustin powering out of that figure 4, the worker, forcing that blood to gush even more for his head. When he rolls over, the blood pours out so quick.
It's a tap.
That if it was in Hangman Page's mouth in a swerve match, he'd be having to spit it out while on his back because his mouth would be full. It is pouring out. It's mass transit stuff, and gravity is doing the work. That blood pours from his head. So again, you are just seeing a situation where it feels all is lost for Dustin. He has no chance back against his brother. Or so you think. Cody takes his weight belt off. It's becoming a theme on Best Match Ever.
Oh my God.
The old weight belt ski. Takes the weight belt off, and Earl takes it from him. No, don't do that. Don't whip your brother. But Dustin manages to take the belt and whips Cody's bare ass.
Oh my God.
With Jim Ross, the perfect man to call, well, sometimes the younger brother needs taken to the woodshed. It's both comedic and super embedded in two Southern boys in the house, and it just feels so locked into the Rhodes way. And again, it's that idea of situational allowance of weapons. It's like, right, now get the weapon out there. All right, you can have that one. Cody for the huge pop, and it's provided Dustin just enough of a comeback. But you're thinking, look at him, man. Yeah, he's been able to use a weapon shot. But he's got nothing left. Yeah, he does. He's got a code red in his back pocket. And again, like the flipping senton, it is this huge moment that you are being told by the action to not count this man out. There is not an age gap. There is not blood loss. Nothing can stop Dustin Rhodes from simply being Dustin Rhodes and being Dusty Rhodes' son. He's been in this business too long to give up now. So that gets an absolutely thunderous pop. At this point, Cody Rhodes is doing the wobbly leg selling, so they're both getting back to their feet at the same time. A collective roar greets them both as they get back to the feet. That morphs for one of the first times into an arena-wide AEW chant, and what a soundtrack for that. You're witnessing blood, you're witnessing something that was two men that were told they could never work a WrestleMania, getting something that right now feels bigger than anything WWE could have promoted at a WrestleMania. So yeah, everything is kind of starting to reach the crescendo. Dustin manages to hit a top rope suplex, which is awesome because of all the blood and the sweat. They actually nearly slip out of it, but it just kind of adds a bit of extra snap.
It's terrifying because you think Dustin Rhodes is going to die at various points, legitimately throughout this match. It looks so much better than that theatrical effect, dramatic effect, delayed stagger. It looks like he's got one morsel of strength left and he has to do it to attack him.
And with Cody potentially down off that, with all of his energy he can summon, Dustin picks him up and he hits this spiked crossroads for an unbelievable to the fans. Yeah. Again, because of the danger of the superplex, as you point out, and just how vicious this crossroads was, like a decapitation one. The fans are willing to buy that somehow Dustin is going to pull it out here, but he can't quite get it done. Cody counters his second attempt at the crossroads, hits a mule kick low blow, again, an act of desperation because he feels like he might be beaten, gets the disaster kick off the back of that, gets a crossroads of his own, and again, the fans are thinking it's done. But we get another 2 count that gets the thunderous, it's not even a 2.9 kick out, but the fans are buying it like it is because they were just prepared to think it was over. And there's a really good call from Alex Marvez here, and that's not a sentence we say much.
He had a nightmare on Double or Nothing. We need to point that out.
We do. He just said, guys, the bleeding doesn't stop. And there was almost like a sadness as he said it because, you look at Dustin Rhodes and the cut hasn't magically healed. Over the course of this match, the blood continues to flow. It's as if, it's not a magic wand. He's still bleeding out there. And Dustin manages to get one more desperation crossroads, which Cody dead sells. And that is the 2.999 Roman Reigns Kurt Angle grade shoulder roll. And that's probably why he saved it from, this is the kick out.
Got to build and build it.
This is the kick out that needs to count for the most. In this moment, having not been able to put him away, it's Dustin that has the moment of realization, and he feels for a second like he should maybe consider a bit of sibling reconciliation between the two, but he gets drawn back in by Cody hitting a punch. That gives the fans the opportunity to do the big boo yay stuff, and again, it just kind of shows you that the alignments are well set. They hit the ropes together. Dustin gets this great desperation Beal throw. There's nothing to it, but there's just enough because he's so exhausted. They're both just gasping for air at this point. Excalibur argues that the blood on both men is just causing Cody to even lose his grip as he tried to control himself on the way down. There's fight forever chance again when it actually feels earned. It feels quite powerful, but Cody gets the vertebraker. That is kind of as good as putting him out. Dustin is lifeless. He picks him up for that one last crossroads. He's orange with his mix of tanner and blood, and he leans over. He gets the 1, 2, 3. Do you want to cover the post-match now?
No, we'll do the post-match at the end.
He has beaten his older brother.
Yeah, this match, I slapped an instant 5 on it at the time. The only thing that tarnishes it in retrospect is it was Dustin Rhodes' career triumph, the best individual performance I've ever seen him. And it's ever so slightly, and I'm talking ever so slightly, diminished by his own continued brilliance and longevity, because this match does an absolutely phenomenal, seminal, almost unparalleled job of making it seem like, oh God, he's still got it, and he's going to die, and this is the last thing he'll ever do in his life. Not only has he still got it, he's actually able to go harder than you've ever seen him before with that. And it's just one sort of somersault dive. But it looks amazing. Cody eats it. He's incredible in the match as well. Jim Ross is incredulous. The hell is that? What the hell is that? Dustin Rhodes is doing that. Yeah. So it's firmly established. And I love that 1-2 punch of Cody Rhodes doing the Stardust thing, and then the Star Wipe, as if to say, I'm so much more athletic. I'm here to take the industry by storm. You are a relic. I'm sorry, but I'm actually going to enjoy this. This is my big night, and it turns out to be Dustin's big night. It's just all so wonderful. But to go from that somersault bump to, at the time, I distinctly remember, and there are people in tears in the crowd, frightened of Dustin Rhodes and what he's doing here.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember at the time, I wanted you to go away. We watched it together. You had no time for this at the time.
No.
And I was watching it going, I'm actually terrified. You were a bit more mature about it than me. You could see the wires. I thought Dustin Rhodes is selling in this match, and the visual of that Muta scale, he broke it. Blade job was so incredible that I thought he's going to need a transfusion after this. Like, can he not go home? Go home. He's going to need a transfusion. He's cut an artery or something because it's pouring out of his face. It's pouring out of his face. There is a moment, and it's a great, great spot, this. And again, it's the sort of thing that the sort of WWE ideal of don't do anything, but just do something by doing nothing. Like, you don't need high spots. Slow it down. Tell a story. You can't slow it down any further than lie on your back and create absolutely immaculate, pristine, heart-pounding drama. But when Cody Rhodes has got Dustin in that figure four, Dustin is, for all intents and purposes, dead, motionless, and he looks like slicked in blood. You think...
Well, he's drowning in it.
He's literally drowning in the blood.
Yeah.
And you think he's going to forget to kick out. His shoulders are on the mat. 1, 2. I think the match is over when he does... And he, oh, God.
Yeah.
Like, I almost went away involuntarily there because I'm losing so much blood and I'm in so much pain. Like, again, he comes back on Fight for the Fallen. And then he has that cool little doomed TV match run where he's the doomed babyface and he puts over the emerging Sammy Guevara, and he's not dead yet and he's not close to retirement. But this match genuinely puts over the idea, and you call it jelly leg selling. It looks like he's trembling. It looks like he needs a transfusion after this. I'm thinking it's his last go around. It's such a great bit of storytelling throughout. The spot where he pulls his pants down. What is Bret Hart 1993 Survivor Series tier ass that is on Cody Rhodes as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That was, I remember watching that and glowing and beaming and fist pumping in the air, thinking, that is so spectacular. That is, what a wonderful thing to tell that story, as you said. It feels like they're in the living room at that point. Yeah. They're not in the MGM Grand. They're in the living room. The 6-7-year-old Cody Rhodes has been a little prick, and Dustin Rhodes has decided to do some more corporal punishment.
Before Dusty comes in and tells him off and separates them.
Yeah. Absolutely magic. You talk a lot as well about, I wish more wrestling looked like this character having a match or a contest with this character rather than let's do like a lot of moves because the crowd kind of want that content. This was Cody versus Dustin Rhodes in every way, shape, and form. And I think that Cody Rhodes, ultimately, his experiment of you can be fluid, babyface, and heels don't exist. He was at his very best as a babyface years after this in WWE. Of course he was. Like a pure babyface. Bit of a temper. Can be a dick sometimes, Cody Rhodes, but he's a great, great babyface. At the time, the storytelling was invincible. It felt like the future of, you can just do everything. But at the same time, brothers will have a love-hate relationship. And if they flit between love and hate, why wouldn't Cody flit between babyface and heel in this specific match? It's so well done. I don't think they lose the thread at the end because the drama is so good. It does somewhat resemble every big match with the finisher kickouts and stuff, but why not play with what you've got? They've commanded an atmosphere where there are people crying in the crowd. Go for your big swings, go for your big finish, you know?
Yeah. It's also, there's a sense, I think, of, I've used this phrase before, wrestling exists to tell you that this Saturday or this Sunday on pay-per-view, it's the end of the world. Don't miss the end of the world, guys. And then right as the end of the world's finishing, it's like, tune in tomorrow night where it's the end of the world all over again. The finishing stretch, if there's ever a time to do like end of the world match booking, it's on your big night.
Yeah, absolutely.
On your very first, like, they've got to give everything, you know, like whenever there's been a first, you know, all the ECW guys talking about Barely Legal, or the WWE people that were there talking about WrestleMania 1, whatever. These are those.
Yeah.
And if there's ever a night to do it and be completely forgiven for anything, really, it's that night. And it wasn't like they hadn't earned it by that point, because I think now we might be more cynical towards those finishes, but in the time, 2019, it was still fresh-ish, that they were just going for everything. It was like, I've got nothing left, but I've got everything to give, kind of thing. Just briefly on like our sort of shared experience of this match on the night, I remember feeling like the blood had been excessive as a shortcut, and I wasn't appreciating what was happening in front of me. You've took the words right out of my mouth, and I'm glad you did. This was Cody versus Dustin. And every other time I've watched this, I think this is the 4th time I've watched this match now, and I've appreciated it more and more and thought, oh my God, how wrong were you?
Yeah.
And I've come all the way around to being like, well, the blood is the one thing that bonded them before, and it's the one thing that's going to bond them after. It's even symbolic of the relationship as the match is
It's
taken.
artful.
It is blood.
Yeah, it's art.
Yeah, they are sharing blood, they are spilling blood, but it's blood.
This match was integral to that early success of AEW because it set the standard of this could be as special as people want it to be. This felt like a movement, and I know it's billionaire funded, so those words have connotations and actual movements, so I understand why people bristle at that, but nonetheless, I believe it to be true. But if you go match by match in Double or Nothing, and particularly All In at the time was a nice time. 2020 and the horrific events and revelations have really consigned that one to glad it happened, but I can't really look back on it with any kind of fondness.
Yeah.
Really, All In.
Yeah.
And then Double or Nothing as well. The main event is saved by the Moxley Lex Luger on Nitro moment. If you go back and watch that, which I have, it falls apart at a level that you can scarcely believe. People were like, not as good as the Tokyo Dome match, but give it 4 stars, 3 and 3. If there's no Moxley angle and Jericho simply wins, and it's like, oh Christ, well, he's going to be your big bad early doors on the TV cycle, it's a disaster. It goes so wrong. You can scarcely believe it, and it's only good before that.
They've got the important stuff right.
Yeah.
And it obscures the stuff that they get wrong,
Yeah. The Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers is excellent. And I love the story of the Young Bucks showing ring rust, as they would. Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are actually good sports-oriented storytellers. It's not so great that it's like instant match of the year. We're so grateful AEW exists. They would have several better matches than the one at Double or Nothing. The opening trios, nice. You know, it's nice. There's very little that you would consider through a 2025 lens to be great on that show. And a lot of it, I think, is just how special, like, it's the WrestleMania effect of a show from a new company that you can go on this journey on with a 10,000 like strong crowd that does so much heavy lifting for this show. This match was necessary. It's the most important match in the history of the promotion. I don't think it would have failed, but what this match did was set the marker of, right, well, you're capable of brilliance, show me. You're capable of brilliance, do it all of the goddamn time. We talked as well about, was AEW that good in 2019, early 2020, 2021, or was WWE simply that bad? I think they cleared a low bar with a huge, huge vertical leap. This was very much, AEW started life as we're going to be WWE, but better. We're going to be a mainstream, big-time outfit, but actually good. This match needed to happen because realistically, if you go from action and time, take over New York from the same year, probably better. Probably better in terms of atmosphere, main event, sequencing, every match hitting.
Talk about high bars. That's one of the best shows ever. That's one of the best shows ever.
But that was the competition even before the Wednesday Night War was announced. That's what you were looking at. Take this match off Double or Nothing, and it goes from an 8.5, probably put up to a 9.5 just because of how special, 6.5, 7. And that's not good enough. Not good enough by half for what AEW promised. Take this match off this show. And you know what? With AEW and the trouble that they found themselves in, Kenny Omega and Moxley, the bad luck, this might have happened. You take this match off it, and this show is like,
you probably have to put a Hangman Page and MJF on it, match, rather than having a talking segment, because they need something that feels connected to why they've done it in the first place.
Indeed. Fastlane 2015, Goldust versus Stardust was wretched. drab. It wasn't a disaster, but it was just so drab and meaningless and heatless and everything they didn't want it to be. That was terrible, and just no one ever thought, I used to want to have a match. I'm sure you do. Everyone wants a match at WrestleMania. You're brothers. It would be nice. That's all you've got. This was like 50 million stars better than that. Yeah. Like 50 million stars better. And that was the first illustration truly of, oh my God, they are going to be 10 times better than WWE. This is a movement. They are credible. They can believe in their own rhetoric. And as much as it's pretty like intense and a bit off-putting to a lot of fans, it's bloody true. Compare Double or Nothing 2019 to Fastlane 15, and oh my God, on night one, they justified all of that puffed chest rhetoric. And here's the thing as well, 2015, 4 years later, WWE is probably 100 times worse as well. Mm-hmm. This match was very much this is the standard you can expect from us. Stick with us. It probably did a lot to create that cult mentality, which is probably always going to happen.
If this is the wrestling you like, this is going to be a squash.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to decimate them.
I'm not saying they fail without this match, but there's a reason why certain people, myself included, certain critics, yourself included, will always hold them to the highest standard and always fight for them. Because if they're capable of what they've been capable of, why can't they be capable of that again? And all of that is traced back to how goddamn special this match was.
It's funny that you talk about it as like not as a kind of quality control. This match is a quality control filter for what AEW can be. But it's interesting how things played out later on in the year with Cody Rhodes, because this match is so many things. You know why we consider it one of the best. It's a good advert for Cody Rhodes as a booker or as a person with a lot of creative control, which we probably thought he had even more than he had until we became more aware of Tony Khan's presence, and then ultimately what Tony Khan felt he had to do by the end of 2019. If you think about the build that Cody Rhodes has been able to take from his own Stardust run and add to this, and now finally he's built his own stage to tell that story. Yeah. So he's already got the story inbuilt and he's brought it up to 2019. He's then helped direct the stage with which to play this out. Dustin Rhodes has done so much of the work by simply being Dustin Rhodes, but Cody Rhodes has done what all the great wrestling promos are just like, you're great, I'm better. It's like, you're great, my brother, but I am better. Yeah. So he's elevated Dustin Rhodes before this match in order to make this matter as much as it does. Then he's taken on the role as charismatic, like kind of rah-rah man for AEW with the throne moment. Then he's turned himself heel for the good of the match.
Yes.
And then, which I will mention, in the post-match, turns himself babyface for something all the audience wants. This was inspired in its own way.
That hug.
He got pelters for it because his performance was just intrinsically Cody Rhodes. I need my older brother. But it was the right thing to do.
He felt it as well.
He felt it.
How could you not feel like so like emotional after that reaction
and
that
it's
they
in lockstep
got?
with the building. They want that hug more. They don't want him to walk out.
Yeah.
I've beaten him. I've left him for dead in the ring. No, they want him to pick him up. Yeah. And then it doesn't just pick him up to say thank you for the match and ruffle his hair. He picks him up because he wants him as a partner. Yeah. So he's also proven his salt as a booker for the next show, because for the first time AEW's got to build to something else. And he's done that because he's just sold you on. We're not here to talk about the quality of that match. We're here to talk about how effective this was at, well, I've just seen this. Of course I want to watch these two take on the Young Bucks. Like that in itself has just sold the next thing they're going to do. So in every respect, we're now looking at Cody Rhodes as the jack of all trades. He's got to wear so many hats in this job and he's wearing them well already.
Yeah.
In terms of like, we don't know what process there even is to trust. We're being given all the reasons to do so.
Absolutely.
And it's the power. We talk about how matches
might be too good for its own good looking at it.
You know? Do tell stories, but this tells that story. This tells a story in the same way All In did against Nick Aldis, but Cody was smart enough to make it about that belt because he knew how much that mattered. What All In 2018 was doing that Double or Nothing 2019 did better was show you that Cody Rhodes is the wrestling everything. Yeah. And AEW needed that.
Yeah.
Because Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks were about to tell a story of rust and about kind of falling down the card in an effort to get others up. Cody was the guy that could just come in right at the top. Yeah. Don't worry, guys, I've got it.
Yeah.
I can my shoulders are broad enough. And I think this match illustrates that as much as the throne and as much as the blood and as much as anything else. Because who else could? Massive babyface pop. Huge heel ends on a babyface pop in a pop. Yeah. Like this is, there's other matches we are going to get to which use blood, which use kind of like turns and multiple things like that. But there aren't many that have to do it with the amount of pressure Cody went into.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said at the very beginning, what if he breaks the throne and this stinks?
Yeah, I know.
That's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a complete
You've just
nightmare.
embarrassed yourself.
Nah, this is just special. We talk about what is wrestling, what do we need to bring back, and you can almost think of it as like a focus group checklist of what do you miss about it, what do you miss about it, what do you miss about it. Right, blood, okay. Unscripted promos, yep, okay. A territory flavor, right, okay. Oh, you want lucha as well. The emotion is what makes professional wrestling professional wrestling. It was overflowing as much as Dustin Rhodes' blood in that building. People were in tears watching it. Ultimately, AEW said, January 1st, 2019, we're bringing professional wrestling back, and they did it on their first ever show. Mm-hmm. Of course they're going to feel invincible. Of course they're going to sort of elicit this cultish devotion. Of course they're going to feel like the be-all and end-all, the answer to everything. In retrospect as well, we talk a lot on the podcast, which again, catch us wherever you get them from, trying to escape the idea of big picture analysis and just go show by show like it's any other company. It isn't any other company. And I think this match has got a lot to do with that. They brought wrestling back to an unbelievable, seminal, unforgettable standard night one. And I think maybe it's a victim, the promotion's a victim of this match in a lot of ways.
But still amazing to go back and watch.
Oh, God, I know. And you still think Dustin Rhodes is going to die?
Yeah.
I watched that match thinking, get him to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, he is in danger. Get him to the hospital now. I won't be mad. Wrap it up. This has gone too far.
It's still bleeding.
And I watched it in like my mid-30s, I should have known better. You did.
Yeah.
I should have known better. But I was just swept up on it, and that's what pro wrestling is. This match is professional wrestling.
Well, let us know what you thought about this match. Let us know in the comments whether you liked it at the time, your memories now, your memories then, if you've watched it back, and any other best matches that you would like us to cover in future editions of this show. Sidge, if they want to do that on Twitter, they can do so with you
on X at Sidgwick.
You can follow our brilliant producer, Adam Nicholas,
It's Adam Nicholas.
I'm at Michael Hamflett. This has been Best Match Ever, and until next time, we will see you soon.